And we're live. Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wellbeing Talks. Hello to the replay viewers. Hello to the live viewers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching us. My name is Gabriella. I'm a wellbeing author and blogger at shinelikeappearl.com, and this is the Wellbeing Talks. And this is a very exciting episode because we are talking about postnatal depression and fatherhood with Darren Horne, who is an author, teacher, martial arts trainer, and father. Darren, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, that's a perfect introduction. And a lot of those things came about because of the birth of my daughter. So I feel a sudden pressure to be winning at life.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing with parenthood. You realize that all of a sudden you've become a role model, and then
Yeah,
you
that's
have
it.
to do your
And,
best. They watching you.
and you start to think much more long term. I'm now thinking, wow, where am I going to be in 20 years? And also, how little time, like how much time and money I had before I had a daughter. Like now, I'm thinking I could have
Yeah.
learned 7 languages easy. I could have learned to code. I could have built a house. I could have done anything. But it's been a wake up call certainly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about fatherhood and postnatal depression is not something that we see associated a lot. It's usually mothers who you read about or you hear about in the media. Were you aware at all that fathers can in fact get postnatal depression?
It's I think the assumption is that because guys don't go through a massive hormonal change, that they wouldn't be able to get it. And I do wonder if the postnatal depression that women get is different to men because women are going through so much hormonal um, change basically with their bodies that it probably is a kind of a different thing. But it wasn't on my radar at all. Had no clue.
So you went to antenatal classes, you've spoken to the midwives, but nobody said that, you need to watch for the signs or
Absolutely, I don't ever remember anyone saying anything. I've never really had a conversation with another guy about it or at all. But once I was diagnosed, oh, everyone gets it. It was insane. My brother's a Royal Marine, and he was on kind of deployment, and he found out I was depressed. And went back to his team, and he was, oh, I just found out my brother's got like postnatal depression, and like 3 people were like, oh yeah, I had that. It's like what? And tons of people said, oh yeah. Looking back, at my behavior, I think I had that as well. Sadly, not enough people go and get help, but it's pretty common. It's definitely 1 in 10 men. I suspect it's higher because we're really bad at going to seek help.
that's something I wanted to ask about. Men are notorious about being a bit more proud and not wanting to seek help. Was that an issue for you, or was it quite easy to ask for help?
No, it's pretty easy to ask for help. Um, yeah, I'm not sure why that is. I've just always been somebody who, through all the other things I do, sort of martial arts, monitoring my emotions and watching my thought processes, as well as seeking out kind of mentors and people to help. I'm okay with doing that. The other thing, particularly with postnatal depression, is I really didn't want to be like an asshole, and I was behaving like an asshole. So if someone could say, you know what, it's not you, you're ill, that would
Yeah,
be amazing. And that's what happened. All this guilt kind of, I still had the guilt, but a lot of it kind of fell away, and my behavior,
yeah.
to a certain extent, was excused.
Let's talk about some symptoms. You can share as much as you're comfortable with sharing. If whatever you don't want to talk about, just leave out. But just for to raise awareness, if anyone is watching this or anybody knows that anyone, so that they recognize the symptoms.
So the symptoms I had was like an absolute lack of love at all. Like it would be crazy. My wife, my daughter, and my family would be in the room, and I felt like I was like outside the bubble. I could see this bubble of like love, and it was like looking at like a film scene, and I was just like just standing on the edge of the room, looking in, thinking, why can't I feel that? And I genuinely got paranoia. I thought every parent was lying. I thought every parent who said that being a parent is amazing and having a child is the best thing you can do in your life. I was like, yeah, you've made a mistake and you want us all to make the mistake with you. I just couldn't see it. I threw myself into my work, which is another really common symptom. I thought I was doing great. I was like, I'm being a good dad. I'm at work doing extra hours. I'm making a future for my family. But I was just hiding. I was hiding from the family, hiding from that responsibility. Um, some other things I didn't want. I didn't like the idea of being called dad or like daddy. And I would be like, oh no, she can call me Darren. Looking back, I'm like, who said that? but that's what I was thinking. I was just very kind of cold. And then with the depression, I was very, very tired all the time, not just from um, being a father. But yeah, it was just uh, as well feeling in prison, feeling trapped. Like this is it now. It was horrible. I certainly felt. I wouldn't say it was kind of suicidal, but I certainly felt like I wanted to kind of flip the board and start the game again. I just wanted to start over.
Which is really sad because, this is something that could be avoidable. We've got a comment here that I couldn't feature, but I'm going to read it out from Matt Campelli. Nobody warned me either. There should be so much more info about this for expectant fathers. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
about not anticipating that it can happen, because once you know that this is what it would look like if it happened to you, then
yeah,
it's easy to catch it. Then you can prepare. You both mom and dad can prepare
absolutely.
so they can watch out. So tell us who was it who discovered this, or
I,
how did that happen? How did you get help?
I found out afterwards, but it was I work at a college. I'm a teacher, and my boss just could tell. She was like, "There's something wrong with Darren," and she went and found another member of staff who'd been through postnatal depression, and asked him to observe me. So I thought I was just getting a teaching observation, which is something we do as part of our job. And he watched me, and then afterwards he said, "Okay, let's have a chat." And then, but leading into that, he said, "Oh, how's life at home? I hear you just become a father." And then I just started talking, being like, "It sucks being a dad. This is rubbish. All parents are lying," and just went into detail. And he sort of thought for a moment. It was like, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, you need to go to the doctor." He's like, "You've got postnatal depression." And I just kind of went quiet. I was like, "No." He's like, "I've got some experience with this. You need to go to the doctor." And I went pretty. I think I found out on the Monday or Tuesday. I think he said that, and I was in the doctor's by Thursday. Um, and I was relieved because I wanted my old life back, not without my daughter, not without my Evelyn, but the happy life. And I'm crazily in love with my wife, and yet that wasn't coming through anymore. That was like a blocked signal. And I spoke to the doctor on the phone first, and he was a great guy with young kids as well. And he said, "Yeah, it sounds like you've got postnatal depression, but come in and we'll chat to you." And then after a deeper chat, he said, "You've got postnatal depression and you've got some trauma from witnessing the birth," which is another thing. Witnessing the
Yeah, let's
birth?
talk about that. 'Cause I actually know someone who said he didn't get postnatal depression, but he had post-traumatic stress disorder
Yeah.
from that experience of watching his wife going through labor and childbirth.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how people do it so regularly. They say, "Oh, so and so had a baby last week," and I'm like, "You're just saying it like that? It's an incredibly extensive form of torture. It's and it's terrifying for the guy watching because we don't know what's going on. Like the nurses are so calm, like, "Oh, this labor hasn't even started yet. You think that's pain? That's nothing." And I have no idea what it's supposed to look like. I have no idea
Yeah.
if they're dying. And it was
Yeah.
we had a really healthy birth, but the amount of times I was like, "That's it, isn't it? I'm going home alone. Like they're not going to survive." And nothing bad
Yeah.
happened. It was just a normal birth. Absolutely terrifying.
But when you think about it, Darren, actually, fathers being present at birth is a relatively new thing. It's just really the past few decades. Fathers never used to be there. It used to be a woman's thing, and
Right.
a circle of women assisting each other, and it was not a place for men. And there must be a reason for that. And as much as Like my partner was there, but I ended up having an emergency C-section under general anesthetics. So he was actually sent out. It was very traumatic. It was very difficult. But that was probably something that started something in him, when things started going wrong. Because I think some men just shouldn't witness that. And
And it's a weird
that's,
thing when we're not really prepared for it, but also at the moment, even as kids, we're not really encouraged to play with dolls or have any interest in sort of caring or looking after babies or anything like that. Oh, I agree with
yeah,
that comment. I do martial arts, so I obviously do kind of boxing and jujitsu, and I can. It doesn't matter what kind of hyper masculine thing I do. I look at my wife and think she beats me hands down. There's nothing I can ever do in life that is as badass as what she did. It's like
yeah.
if I ever hurt myself, she'd be like, "You think that's pain?"
That is true. But women are said to have a much higher pain tolerance, and I think this must be the reason.
Yeah. And what's crazy is that I don't know if women, what happens hormonally, or if women kind of forget this, but I'm just trying to read that comment as well. But after you've had the baby, a lot of women are like, "Oh yeah, I would have another one," and I'm like, "What? I'm not going into that room again." It's like, and then you get women who've got like 6 kids. It's like, did you black out? Did you forget that even the
I mean,
last one? Yeah,
you
even the
do
last one.
kind of black out because the hormones work, and it's just like a natural painkiller. You just like you're somewhere else, and that's why all these antenatal classes about the ins and outs of birth and how it's gonna happen. Seriously, when you're in that situation, you're not thinking. You're
Yeah,
not you're not there. Only your body is there, but you're not there. You're like on another planet. And that's exactly how it should be. And thinking back, all we remember is just a blur. So
right. Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean.
otherwise, the human race would be extinct, I think.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Right. So let's go back to postnatal depression.
Okay.
What was it? Because now you're pretty much over it. What
Yeah,
was it that worked for you? What was
okay.
it that you would? What is it you would recommend to someone suffering? How to?
I think
Yeah, best advice and stuff.
for me, I was maybe a little bit arrogant. I was like, oh, now I know it's postnatal depression, and it should go as we get used to having a baby and I get used to my new life. And I already practiced things like mindfulness, and I felt like I could monitor my emotions. Totally couldn't. So it went on for, I think that was in the February or March, and I carried on trying to fight it on my own, and failed miserably, and it got progressively worse throughout the year. So then it hit like breaking point, and my wife and I were on seriously shaky ground. So I threw everything at it. And I don't know which one worked the best because I did every single one immediately. So a small thing I did is I changed my diet to a thing called a ketogenic diet, which is really high fat, very low, zero sugar, and very low carbs. And it's reported with that diet that after about 2 weeks you get euphoria and you feel really good. But I also think there's a control element that you're controlling your diet so in such a detailed way that gives you self-esteem. But that certainly kicked in at one point because I'm not eating junk food, which and obviously diet has an impact.
Yeah.
I went on antidepressants. I went on fluoxetine, I think it was called. Um, but that can take like 6, 7, 8 weeks to kick in. So, and I was starting to feel better before that period, but I would still, if you've got postnatal depression or even depression, and you're in a family, it's your duty to do everything you can. You've got to show your loved ones that you're fighting it. Like if I hadn't gone on antidepressants, my wife would have been probably more likely to separate from me. It was ketogenic, called keto, I think sometimes. I also so I did the diet. I did the antidepressants. I also went and did a practitioner course called neurolinguistic programming, which is a way of programming your mind through language and working out basically how you think. After day one of that, I felt amazing. I did 4 days and went home to my wife, and I just I spoke to her. It's called kind of clean language, just without ego, and communicated without kind of getting in my own way. And within minutes, we were talking again, and she felt heard, which she hadn't felt heard for months and months. And then I did 4 days, like 6 weeks later, and every step. Neurolinguistic programming was amazing for me, but it's also very similar. There's some overlap with other things like cognitive behavior therapy. But I would have also gone to counselling if it had got to that stage, particularly relationship counselling, because it's if you've got postnatal depression and it manifests itself in the same way it did with me, your partner is basically in a psychologically abusive relationship. That's basically what's happening. So you need to. It's going to take a lot of work to repair that, and it's going to take a lot of patience on both sides. So, healthy diet, antidepressants, neurolinguistic programming course. I think those were the main ones. Yeah.
Can I ask how long you were on the antidepressants?
Not long. I think I went on them in November. There was a limit. They recommended a period of time that you had to go on them for. I think it was something like 3 months or something like that. Maybe 4. And I came off them cold turkey because I hadn't been on them that long. I would go back on them if I ever needed to. But what also happened with me is once I started getting my mind in a healthy place, I realized that I probably had a bit of depression and anxiety for a lot of my life. So now I'm just hyper aware of it. The diet is called ketogenic diet. It's KETOGENIC. It's really good. But, weirdly, even though you're eating loads of fat, I lost tons of weight. It didn't make sense to me. So I came off the diet because I couldn't eat enough fat to keep my body going. Because your body switches to burn fat, not sugar.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
because
that was
it's not the fat that makes you fat, it's the sugar and the processed stuff that makes you fat. And like the body stores that like alien material, the toxin, it stores it in fat tissue. So if you
yeah,
keep eating sugar, it will produce more fat because they have to put it somewhere because it's toxic. If you
that's
eat
it.
fat, that's actually brain food. So
Yeah,
it makes sense that you have a psychological like problem or how to say it,
absolutely.
then
And you have
it's going to
and I had more stable energy, and I was much more flexible. I would, if I could find a way to go back on it without losing weight, I would. But yeah, more research, I think.
Okay, so these are very, very good tips for anybody who's listening and either know someone or they suffer themselves, then these tips are worth trying out. And we're going to have a separate interview with Darren about NLP and
Oh,
how to control our emotions. So stay tuned, everyone, for that. Um, Definitely.
there's also some
Let me
books.
ask you,
I was just going to say there's some
go
books.
on.
I think with depression as well, reading really helps. I don't know why that is, but there's a book by a guy called Matt Haig called "Reasons to Stay Alive." That guy,
Mm.
he just details his depression, and it's just wonderful to kind of see someone talk so openly about it. And that's a very small book. And when you're depressed, it's really like a big book with small font is really hard to get into. But a book that you can flick through, amazing. But reading and listening to music, just taking time for yourself. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Feeding your mind with positive things
Ooh,
and positive influences, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear from someone honestly and openly about what it's like and what they're going through. Because I think when you said at the beginning that so many parents like you feel like they're faking that they're so
Yeah,
happy, and I think a lot of times they are faking it because
yeah,
they've it's the fear of being judged. You know,
yeah.
when you see on social media everyone's having this picture perfect life and they're so happy and blessed and beautiful baby. And I think in reality, that's not how they feel, or at least not all of the time, but they're scared to say it because of the fear of being judged. What do you think about that?
I think entirely. I think our society is built up so now we're lots of individual pockets of people, and no one's communicating as well as they perhaps should. I had the same thing when we were trying for a baby. We had a miscarriage, and that hit me really, really hard as well. And I didn't know they were that common. And again, once it happened, tons of our friends were just like, "Oh, we had a miscarriage. We've actually had two." And it's like, well, why do we not know? That's crazy. Why aren't you sharing that information? Like I knew they existed, but I naively and stupidly and arrogantly thought it was for parents who sort of smoked while they were pregnant or did or made a mistake or whatever. But you know, we did everything right and still had a miscarriage. Just, but again, I'm happy. Yeah, I think I think that's probably why I've become like a sounding horn for all of my issues because I just wish I had some warning.
That's exactly it. And so many people just wish they had some warning. And I mean, I think it should be part of the antenatal program because it's a very extensive antenatal program now here in the UK and probably in a lot of other countries where we have viewers and listeners from. But
Yeah,
as far as I am aware, being prepared for the emotional changes and what happens once you've taken that baby home is just not part of that antenatal program, and I believe it should be.
yeah, absolutely. And annoyingly, I don't think people even all go to the antenatal program, or they'll go to maybe the first session. I won't go to anymore. And I think part of that is
Oh,
because
I did.
you went to you went to them.
We went to all of them. Me and my partner, we bought books, we read everything. We were so prepared, or so we thought. And like we had no idea. Once we were actually in there, like, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah,
This is not what this is not what we're supposed to be doing.
it is crazy. It is crazy. Just I remember driving home from the hospital with a baby, and it was like, I don't feel adult enough to be able to do this. I can't keep a plant
Yes.
alive. How am I going to keep a baby alive? Crazy.
Yeah, I felt exactly the same. When they told us in the hospital that it's okay, you're good to go home now. And I remember we looked at each other with my husband like, are they sure they're gonna let us take this baby home? Just
Yeah.
like that?
And then we would get paranoid that like the midwives that come around would take her away. We kept thinking we're really bad parents. What if they what if the house isn't like really really clean? It's like
I really think there should be a celebration, like I mentioned to you before the interview, like a rite of passage to mark that you've progressed into a different stage in life. I
I
really believe that how they used to have it in all societies, it must have been very, very helpful to like mark a line in the sand that this was my life before and now I'm a responsible person for somebody else's life, not just for my own. And that's a very, very big thing.
my wife spent some time in South Africa, and I can't remember what tribe it was, but she said that the young men are allowed to kind of drink and they fight and they can have multiple girlfriends and that kind of stuff. It's like, but once you become, I think it was classed as an elder or something like that. It's like you then commit to one woman because you're a grown up now, but then you're also allowed to have say on how on village policy, and you're treated as a wise person, I suppose. And it would be good to have something like that. And I think we kind of do. Our society just puts it down. So, for example, marriage is a ceremony like that, and it's like, okay, you've gone from
Yeah.
a bachelor, a free young man, and now you uh, are basically. I like the idea of like a night. It's interesting. A friend of mine got married recently, and they were moved in such a way, and the person doing it said to the groom, "That's because your right hand needs to be free because that's your sword arm, so you can protect your wife." But I kind of like that imagery to a certain extent, even though it's sexist. But I like the imagery. But the problem is, no one respects. Oh, sorry. Some people don't respect marriage vows anymore. You know, people break that oath, and it doesn't mean as much as it should in a culture. You know, if you, to a certain extent, if you break a marriage vow, there should be a lot of cultural shame around it, but there isn't. It's just, oh yeah, he cheated on her, she cheated on him, whatever. No. So the ceremonies that we've got are easily broken because no one minds.
But like marriage is a perfect ceremony for that. But
Yeah,
so many people are not married when they have a baby. Like
oh,
I
yeah,
wasn't
that's true.
married.
Yeah, of
Or what
course.
about the single mothers who don't even have they have a baby, but the father leaves them even before that baby is born, and
I,
then there is really nothing to,
yeah,
you
I,
know.
I also have no clue how single mothers do it. Emily and I struggled when we outnumber our daughter 2 to 1. It's handy when we've got kind of grandparents around and it's 4 on 1, but even sometimes
Mm.
that's a handful now she's running around. Um, yeah, it's crazy
Do
that
you
we don't
think?
have more.
Do you think the fact that the wider family disappeared, kind of, in most cases, and it's a nuclear family raising the child or the baby, do you think that can contribute to the surge of postnatal depression cases?
I'm not sure. I It's interesting because I don't know if postnatal depression has always been there, but just hasn't been as talked about. But I do think that the getting rid of the kind of extended family has probably done damage to our society. I think one of the greatest things you can do for mental health is to hang out with people older than you, sort of grandparent age, because they have wisdom and stories and perspective, and but also to hang out with people younger than you because it depends on the age, but they're kind of carefree and hopeful and full of energy. And households that have that whole range of ages,
Yeah.
I think, will work better. And I think we can get excluded. So this is also why I think you get kind of distrust between generations and blame. So,
Yeah.
in the UK, there's a lot of blame on young people. So, oh, young people do this, young people do that. So, well, if you hung out with them, you'd know that's not true. And even recently with the election, 75% came out and voted. Young people are rocking. Um, and then there's others who blame, the elderly for something. So go hang out with them. No one's to
Yeah.
blame.
I think young people are awesome, which brings me to your book that you have just published.
That was a good link. Yes. So
Yeah.
because I got postnatal depression, I realized I'd had depression and anxiety a lot in my life. Also, as a teacher, I've seen mental health issues increase over the sort of 10 years or so that I've been teaching amongst teenagers. And having a daughter, I see my daughter who's wonderful. She has no idea how she looks. She just won't give up. She explores the world. And I think, well, what happened between sort of my daughter or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year old and why are so many teenagers unhappy? Why do they have lack of self-esteem? And why do they often suffer with depression, anxiety? And it's because of this world that we've got, this society and education system and media influence from day one, programming you to feel unhappy so they can sell you stuff to temporarily make you happy. Um, and I just thought, okay, I've picked up some tools now. I've gone through this battle. Maybe I can write a book and help some teenagers. Because also a lot of mental health in adults, I think 45 or 50% of it manifests itself during the teenage years. So, and because I have access to teenagers, because I'm a lecturer, I just thought if I can write a book that gives them a couple of hacks, a couple of tips, not just how to deal with depression, but how to get more out of life and not make decisions based on fear, and just to realize that they're the hero of this journey and they can achieve anything that any human being has ever achieved. They just need to believe in themselves and stop letting our system limit their options. So I also wanted to see if you could write a book, but I wrote it and I ran it past a lot of my students as I was writing it because it was based on like talks and lectures and motivational stuff I told them, and I was saying the same stuff every year. We were seeing the same problems every year. So I wrote a book called Level Up Your Teens. It's on Amazon right now, and if you buy it, seek me out on social media. I'm everywhere, and I'd love to hear from you, hear what you think of it.
Awesome. And we are going to have an interview about that book and why it's important to work with teenagers and to have life coaching for teenagers. For anyone who's watching it, stay tuned because details will follow. There will be a whole separate interview just about that topic because it is a very worthy topic. Is there anything else you would like to add, Darren, about postnatal depression, or did we cover most of it?
I think we covered a lot of it. I think I think it's worth just researching a little bit. Just, like if you're about to have a child, or even if you've got friends who are having children, just research it a little bit, just so you can be a little bit more aware. Guys are terrible when we get depression because we we shut down and we just get moody and angry and sad. So people think we're being dicks, and a lot of the time it isn't. It's that we're ill. So yeah, I think just try and be patient if you think somebody is suffering with it, and just go get help. Just go to the doctors. It's there's no kind of thing around it. There's no stigma. He'll say you are depressed or you're not. Just deal with it.
Yeah. That's a very good last line. Deal with it, because you have to, as a parent, you have to. It's your responsibility to be psychologically well, to be overall well-being is your responsibility. Otherwise, you can't look after your child, can you?
And if you don't deal with it and you end up losing your family, you won't know the joy that you've lost. Like, I mean, you can find me on Snapchat and see me hanging out with my daughter. Like, she's just beyond, even on my Facebook page now, she's beyond cute. And if I hadn't got through that depression, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be, living in a bedsit somewhere on my own, thinking that I was lucky to get out of that. No, the propaganda is correct. There's so much joy and love in having kids. And the depression will tell you that there isn't. The depression is lying. The depression always lies.
That is true. That is true. So, guys, if you're watching this and if you feel like you might be suffering from postnatal depression, just remember what Darren said. Help is out there. Go and speak up, and go and get better, because life is awesome at the other end.
It is.
Thank you very much, Darren, for being here.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you for being so open and honest about this topic, because it's not everybody who is ready to open up like you did.
No problem. I really, it's a weird thing to say, but I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad. I really enjoyed it, and I learned. And send us a message, and stay tuned, because we will have another interview. Actually, we will have 2 upcoming interviews with Darren. One will be about the book and the teenagers and life coaching, and the other with neuro-linguistic programming and how to handle emotions and how to control emotions. So stay tuned, everyone. Thank you for being here. Have an awesome evening. Have a wonderful weekend. And until I see you next time, you know what to do. Shine like a pearl and enjoy your life. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye, Darren.
Hi, guys.